That's it. That's the end of my Italian. I'm afraid I'm going to have to revert to English now. My name's John Dixon, and I'm the Managing Vice President for Business Transformation and Process Management and Business Process Management for Gartner. I'd like to take a few minutes to talk you through where BPM is going, Business Process Management. Before I do that, how many of you are doing Business Process Management to some degree or another? Just put your hands up in the air. Congratulate. Don't be shy. It's a good thing. Good. Fantastic. So when we talk about the future of BPM, we have to really start off with where it's been. And we're quite lucky because actually we know that business process management delivers. Business process management is a management process that treats processes as assets that directly contribute to enterprise performance and business agility. It's that agility word I'll come back to in a little while. But BPM delivers, and we know this because at Gartner we do a lot of research. We talk to a lot of clients. We take about 1,000 calls a year on business process management in my team alone. So we understand quite a lot about business process management. And one thing that we know is that it delivers growth and loyalty. It also reduces costs and reduces cycle time. And we know this because we've talked to companies. The New York State Tax and Finance Department increased tax revenue by $100 million per year because of their BPM program, which is great if you're the New York State Tax and Finance Department. I'm not so sure it's great if you're a citizen of New York State and you've got to pay that money. But the interesting thing for New York State was they took it a stage further. They joined the digital race and mixed analytics in with their business process management program. And they managed to avoid $1.2 billion of fraudulent tax claims. $1.2 billion. I love that number. Only the Americans could do that. So let's jump over the pond here to Europe. Carphone Warehouse, which is a local high street provider of cellular telephony devices, their BPM program saw a 1,100% ROI. That's not a mistake, 1,100%. They increased their customer revenue by 120%. Fantastic numbers. But it's not just profit making and governments. We also have organizations like the Lifeboat Institute in the UK. Now, the Lifeboat Institute are those people who get a call out when somebody's in trouble at sea. Their boat is sinking or somebody's drifted off in a dinghy, and their job is to go and rescue them. They have nothing to do with the British government. They are a unique charity. So 95% of their income comes from donations. So BPM for them was all about reducing costs and reducing cycle time. And within 3 months of their program, they'd save £1.3 million sterling on the operational costs. That's £1.3 million that they could spend on life-saving rather than wasting it on administration. Fantastic. So for those of you doing BPM, give yourself a quick round of applause. You're doing the right thing. Congratulations. Well done. But we're talking about the future. So here comes the big but. And this is the big but. The world has changed. 2007, we witnessed a fairly dramatic economic downturn which has lasted for 7 years. And during that time, most BPM programs have been focused upon cost saving and small in-silo process improvement. In this time, we've seen large companies go bankrupt. Now, I've got a few up here. So Kodak. Does anybody remember? Most of you look relatively mature in this audience. My apologies, ladies, you don't. How many of you remember Kodak, the camera company? Exactly. Bankrupt. They got blown out of the water because of digital cameras. I'm a photographer. I have in my bag down there my own digital camera, and it's not a Kodak camera. But the stupid thing about this, Kodak invented the digital camera. And they chose not to exploit it. Somebody else did. Digitalization took them apart. Let's look at the next one, Blockbuster Video. This was a large chain. Now, this is actually still running in Australia for some reason, but everywhere else it's bankrupt. It's gone. Why? Because of Netflix. Digitalization. We no longer go down to the corner store and buy a DVD. Now what we do is we download it on streaming services like Netflix or Amazon Instant. Borders Bookshop, big American chain that was all over Europe as well, bankrupt. Why? Because of Amazon, digitalization. How many of you own a Kindle or equivalent device? I know I do, I've got one in my bag, so all of you. So we've even consumed books which we thought, since people invented the printing press, that they'd be in our back pockets, we'd never get rid of them. We've had them for thousands of years in some cases, written work, but now it's streamed digitally to us. How many of you have ever caught a taxi in Milan? Uber. Uber is coming. You can't resist it. It's a rubbish service, in my opinion, but nevertheless it's here. So what we have are companies which are stealing business away from other companies very quickly because they offer a different alternative, a digital business alternative, not just a product with automation, which is what we've done for the last 20, 30 years, but digitalization of the business. The whole way we do business has changed. Now, before you all get carried away and think this is an American-centric thing, how many of you have heard of Alibaba? A couple of you. Okay, so Alibaba is like an Amazon and an eBay combined, but in China. They're a Chinese company. Last year, they did $420 billion of business. That's more than Amazon and eBay combined, which only did $90 billion. Compare that, 420 billion versus 90 billion. And that's a Chinese company, a digital company. So it doesn't matter where you are, your competition will find you and will attack you when you least expect it. So if we go back to that word agility I used for BPM, that's what we need to adopt in our organizations. We have to be innovative and we have to be agile. And we've got to deliver it on mobile platforms, because that's how everybody does things. How many of you walk into your bank and ask for money or transfer money by physically visiting your bank? Everything's done on your mobile phone. Everything's done on applications. My bank is actually where my university is, and I haven't been there in 20 years. So I just don't go there. Everything is done digitally. So, Jack Welch, GE, said, the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside. The end is near, and this is very true. So this is about BPM helping organizations get much better at executing on change, going back to that agility thing. So we have to shift our minds, our thinking, away from in-silo cost containment, cost reduction, cycle time reduction, which is where BPM has been for the last 7 years. And we have to think bigger. We have to go beyond that. And we have to move into something which has become strategically relevant to the executives in the senior management team. Because unfortunately, for many organizations, BPM is seen as something done by people in white coats with green pens in their top pocket. And that's not a good place to be. So BPM has to come up. So we've got a bit of background. Let's talk about this thing called digital business. This is what Gartner's term is for where we're going. This is not the same as automation. We had a few years ago a thing called the nexus of forces, an area where social media, big data, analytics, cloud computing all came together and created an opportunity for digital business. But what then happened on top of that was the Internet of Things. And it's the Internet of Things combined with the nexus of forces, which is creating this thing called digital business, which is the blurring of lines between the physical and the digital worlds, moving away from strictly analog products into digitalized business services. Services is the important component. So things, Internet of Things, business, and people, which means processes, all working together. So let's give you some examples of Internet of Things. 3D printing. Is anybody involved in 3D printing here at the moment? You will be, because it will change manufacturing. Imagine what you could do with exports if all I had to do was fire the instruction to a digital printing facility in the country that I wanted to ship my part from, and they would create the part at their facility and ship it to a local customer. I don't have to make it, I don't have to wrap it, I don't have to ship it, I don't have to worry about warranty returns. It's all done at a local site. And other alternatives here are General Electric is going all out at the moment to put sensors on everything it can, but its real sensors are going on to turbines, so they know when they have to come and do maintenance on that aircraft engine, not a rolling 12-month environment, but actually when it's needed, at the time it's needed, which reduces the cost of maintenance activities, increases the reliability, and reduces the number of failures that GE are witnessing. Parking. They're putting sensors into parking zones if you're in a smart city, so that actually when you're driving into the city and you're saying, find me a parking space, your app will go, drive here, go there, park here. And you will do that. And you know what that does? It reduces the amount of time that you spend driving, which in turn means you're giving out less greenhouse gases, which is good for the environment. It means that you are happy because you found yourself a parking space very quickly. And even more importantly, you're spending even more money in the city or town that you're visiting because you're not wasting time running around, so everybody benefits. And then finally here, just a silly example. This is actually on the tube in Heathrow. When the tube, the underground train comes past, the model's hair woofs like this, so that you think that it's the gust of wind coming through the tube that's moving her hair. It's silly, but it's beginning to show that advertising is taking it. A more horrific example is L'Oreal has this application on your iPad where you can take a picture of your face and you can apply L'Oreal makeup and you can see what works and what doesn't directly looking at it. And my colleague Dave Aaron, who's a big gentleman, he's bigger than I, has done this, and he looks like the monster out of Monsters, Inc. It's terrible. So technology is not always a great thing. So all this technology. Now Gartner has done some research and we think that by 2017 more than half of consumer products and service R&D investments will be redirected to customer experience innovation. In other words, it's all about the customer. Business process management has to start with the customer and work back, not be inward looking at automating given processes within your environment, but has to start with that customer experience, not just the customer, but the experience of the customer. Now, the next bit that I'm going to go into, I'm going to preference with this guy here, William Gibson, who's a science fiction writer. And he said, the future is here, it's just unevenly distributed. And what he's trying to say is that there are pockets where this already exists, but by and large, there are a lot of people lagging behind. So we have these things called digital moments, business moments. And business moments occur in digital worlds where things are connected to other things which drive other activities. And when you map them out, they look a bit like this, which is a big complex thing. But for those of us that do process modeling and mapping, this kind of looks like a process. But actually it's a dynamic process. And in this particular example, what we have is a truck that's being used to drag minerals out of a mine. That's what the truck does. These are big, capital-intensive units. And for a long time, what happened was the mining company bought the trucks, used the trucks, had a fleet in reserve, because if a truck broke down, it lost them a lot of money because they were not taking the ore out of the ground. And it wasn't particularly working well for them. So the truck manufacturer turned up at the mine and said, let's watch what you do. And they watched for a while and they came back and came up with a new service. And what they said was, we're going to put a bunch of sensors in our truck, and those sensors will drive how we operate. So the first sensor they put in was a weighing machine into the truck. You'd think that's nothing special. But it increased the truck yield by 10% because the drivers were unsure how much the truck could actually take, which increased their volume per ton of $12. But if you think about per ton and how many thousands of tons they pull out of the ground, that's a lot of money. The next thing they did was put sensors onto the components that were most likely to fail. And they didn't do a, it's failed, it hasn't. They did a, it's going to fail. at which point it would beam a message back through the system, through the Internet of Things, through a wireless device that picked up that, went through their digital platform, and I'll come back to that in a second, and went back to the truck company, and the truck company either put a spare on the truck that they had at their base and took it down, or just took a new truck down, whichever was easier, and swapped the trucks live. In other words, trucks as a service, not trucks as you buy from me. As long as I've got a truck, you're going to pay. A different business model. So now we begin to look at, okay, not am I doing the right things for the business, but am I doing the right business? A very different conversation for a BPM professional to have. Now, business moments at the moment start at this level. We have another example about a car crash, where a car crashes into a pylon. The pylon has got a sensor on it that says, "Ooh, broken," and it fires off a whole chain of events. In your car, your mobile phone acts as the conduit for all the digital information and goes, the airbag's deployed, bad. The guy that I'm connected to, I'll check his Fitbit to see if he's still got a heartbeat. Yes, he has. I'm going to call the emergency services. The emergency services are called, given your vital information because of the wearables you've got on you. The insurance company is immediately notified. The insurance company broadcasts a request out for a pickup truck to come and collect your things, and so on. This is a business moment because the trucks are picking up that there could be a deal for them. The insurance companies are picking up that there's a challenge. So business moments are things that happen very quickly, by and large, or in the case of this truck, more slowly, because this is the beginning, and they will drive the way that our business works. So if we can't seize those business moments, if we can't see where those business moments are going to happen and exploit them, then we're going to slowly drift out of relevance and cease to be in business. So, as BPM professionals, what do you need to do differently? Well, what we're going to start off with is that most of us are used to doing process improvement within our organizations. That's fine, we're good at this. Some of us have got better at doing it from outside our organizations, our supply chains. If you're in the motor industry, you've been doing this for a very long time. If you're in the pharmaceutical industry, you're beginning to do this. If you're in the banking industry, you probably haven't even thought about this. But then there's this next layer, which is the unknown resources. This is the people who will be part of that digital business moment. Think Uber. I don't know who that taxi driver is going to be. I just put a request in and Uber has found me a taxi driver. They're in my unknown resources. So the job of the BPM professional in the future then will be to help facilitate business change amongst known and unknown stakeholders and things to create a value ecosystem. In other words, it's not just value for me, it's value for the whole ecosystem at large. If you think about that example of the truck manufacturer going to its customer and building that partnership actually benefited both of them, not just one of them. And that's a shift in thinking that we need as well. Now, we have some challenges, and the challenges are around business process management maturity, because the reality is most people are at level 2. And unfortunately, to get to digital business, you need to be at 3 and 4, which means we've got to do some work improving. So this is basically projects, individual activities. This is where I've actually established a business process competency center, and we're doing business process management as a core component of the jobs that we're in. And at this point, we've introduced technology that can help us make that transition. Now, I told you about a digital business platform. Don't worry about this. There's no tests after this event. But what this is showing is that there's things, and those things are connected through gateways, through an aggregation device, through then into APIs, into data stores where there's some orchestration, think BPM, and then it's fed into this integration layer, which exploits cloud and mobile, as well as our legacy environments of ERP solutions and manufacturing enterprise systems or building management systems. And we build on that with information management, BPM, business information. And eventually, hopefully, we get our customers and partners the perfect outcome. Okay, that's quite a scary looking diagram. And the reality is today, it doesn't exist. Today, it's being worked on. Today, there are pockets who've managed to pull this off. So the mining company and the truck company uses a business process management suite as the backbone for connecting everything together. There's no human involvement beyond giving an instruction to a driver to collect a part, put it in the truck and take the truck to the mine. That's the human side of it. Everything else is totally automated. The information from the truck saying, I'm about to brake, going through the business process management suite where it's deciding which is the best path, which is the best driver, who's got the most availability. All of that is happening automatically, all of it through a business process management suite. But that is only one component. There's lots of others. So for those of you that are CIOs, enterprise architects, this is going to be your next challenge. How do we build one of these? And more importantly, how do we connect to one of these? Because there's a lot of these going to be out there. And it's about sharing now. It's not about control of my IT environment. It's actually about opening my IT environment. Open APIs to my systems to allow people to connect with me. And that brings up whole security and ethical challenges for you as technology leaders. So at the moment, we're very good at this, which is the internal stuff, internal operations and standard processes. And to some degree, we've managed to do the external stuff as well, going outside our organization to our supply chain and potentially our customers too. Lego, the toy manufacturer, maps the customer journeys of its customers before they buy anything from Lego. They've got some very sophisticated approaches for doing that. But this is where we need to be. It's boundaryless. Doesn't matter where your process starts or ends. What you've actually got to manage is the task itself. So to do that, we need to empower our employees because a lot more autonomy will be required of individual employees. The hierarchical structure that we have today is not going to be fast enough. We need organizational change as a core capability in our place, and at the moment, that's not true. 70% of all transformation initiatives fail, according to Kotter and McKinsey. And we need clear values and fewer policies. In other words, what's the behavior we want you to do? So by 2017, 70% of successful digital business models will rely on deliberately unstable processes designed to shift as the customer needs shift, which means if you're doing straightforward end-to-end business process management, that's not enough. You've got to be able to deal with, here's the outcome that we want. The path to it is unknown. We call that case management in Gartner, ad hoc processes. But it's that ability to move very quickly through processes which is important. So let's kind of stop it here on what do we need to do as individuals. Well, we got very good at process analysis. We can do process analysis. What we haven't yet done is behavioral analysis. Looking at the time here. So behavioral analysis is what behaviors do I actually want people to do? So a quick example. A limousine driver arrives at an airport, picks up a couple with a young child to take them to the airport. Everybody's witnessed that before. Couple are stressed, baby is screaming its head off. Not a pleasant experience. So the driver contacts the concierge, contacts the hotel and tells them the situation. So this is what happens. Driver arrives at the front of the hotel. The boot opens. A concierge porter turns up, grabs the belongings of the customer and says, "Follow me, please." The three of them, including the screaming baby, walk upstairs straight to their room. In the room is a bottle of white wine, chilling, a warm bottle of milk and a cot ready for the screaming child. The porter walks away. At which point, the father or mother realizes they haven't checked in, but they notice a letter on the side of the desk that says, "We understand things are a little fraught for you. We've given you a couple of things to help you relax. When you're ready, come down and sign in properly and give us your credit card details." If you followed our process, you would have never done that. But the behaviors that we wanted was for the client to have a wonderful experience. And actually what you've done here is break the process and give an autonomy to people to be able to shift things. And what's the risk? The risk is that the couple won't pay their bill. Highly unlikely. Absolutely impossible. But the benefit is we've now got a loyal customer who recognizes the value that we add. Structured processes we're very used to, but we have to move to these improvised or case-based solutions. So when you're looking for a BPM platform, look for something that can handle things which are unstructured as well as structured, because structured on its own won't be enough. Internal improvement, which is where we've been for the last X number of years, needs to shift to being one about ecosystem value. In other words, business process management people have to start using the B word at the front of BPM, business. They have to become business experts as well as process monkeys. Internal efficiencies will shift towards growth and outcome. We did some surveys on CEOs last year and this year, and the majority of CEOs are now saying we're moving to a growth mode, not a cost containment mode. It's around 70%. This is a massive shift. So if your BPM program can't keep up with growth and be seen as being part of the growth of an organization, your BPM program is dead. That doesn't mean you stop doing internal efficiencies. It means you add. That's what the plus sign is. Process improvement methods, Lean, Six Sigma, theory of constraints, ITIL, all that stuff, fantastic. But now you've got to add change and agile methods too. Because if you can't handle change, you won't help your business change. If you don't have any capability of doing things in an agile manner, you will miss all the business moments. Business process technologies. We're good at this, but we need to add to those things disruptive technologies like the Internet of Things sensors. If you can't integrate Internet of Things to your BPMS platform, ask your BPMS provider why not, and what is their workaround until it can be. Many business process management suite providers are currently providing interfaces to IoT. And in capital expenditure, BPM has traditionally worked along, let's spend money as a project. But what we really need to do is start moving into one that's about operational expenditure. How many of you are currently in the cloud? A couple of you. And for those of you that aren't in the cloud, is the main reason you're not in the cloud because you're scared of security? Stick your hand up if security is a major concern for you. Okay. So you should know that over the last 2 years, all the major hacks that have gone on, the losses, the Ashley Madison rubbish, all those things have been caused by people who have their data in their own data center, not in the cloud. People who have their data in the cloud have not been targeted, just saying. So if you're in the cloud, you can move to an OPEX model, not just a CAPEX model, which means you can move quicker because you don't have to go through all the stage gate nonsense of a project management office. And then finally, CIOs, this applies to you in the audience, you're gonna have to let go. We talk about bimodal IT in Gartner, but you really need to move away from tight control of everything to more facilitated freedom, enable people to engage with your systems. So, I'll end you with this. So all of us in this room at the moment are business change agents, which is fantastic, because we do BPM, or we're CIOs, and we lead technology changes. But what I'd like to suggest is that as we move forward as BPM professionals, that actually we can step up and become business change leaders, not just agents. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Grazie.